What's up? Welcome back to my channel, or to the first time if you're new. In all likelihood you are. I'm Sylvan. Today we're going to be finishing out all of the character demos for Genshin Impact. In the last several videos we covered all the way through Sumeru, starting from the beginning, and now today we will be covering all of the currently released Fontaine demos, starting with Lyney all the way up to Arlecchino. I won't belabor it any further. Check out my other videos if you want to see my opinions on how I feel about a lot of the trailers, as well as how I'm looking at the trailers. I'm just going to get into it, starting with Lyney. Lyney's an interesting character. A strong start for Fontaine, I'd say, just because him and Lynette were two characters that were long time, well, just anticipated by pretty much everybody, given that they were the first Fontaine characters we ever saw. And, I mean, I'll be honest, I personally am not, like, that crazy about Lyney or Lynette, but I like them quite a bit regardless. I wouldn't say there's any Fontaine character I, like, actually dislike or even think is just sort of mediocre. It's just some are drastically more interesting to me than others, and at least gameplay-wise, Lyney is not my style. But aesthetic-wise and everything, I think he's great. Has a great demo. I really like how, both for his and for Lynette's, they involve each other very thoroughly in their demos. It's very fitting for their characters, and I just love also all of the, like, magic stuff, the card play, all the stuff. It just leans really hard into it. This right here is a great shot. And yeah, this is very much following up on the Sumeru trailers with a similar level of quality, I'd say.
If I had to make a suggestion,
and it uses a lot of characters that mean a lot to each other, which I very much enjoy, as I've said in previous videos. That was a good first watch through, just looking at it, but to go back through it again, I think this opening is really stylish. It's great that it brings into just basically a performance of his, even if it is just practice. The entire demo is just sort of brimming with style, I'd say. And then here, Spectacle of Phantasmagoria, a famed Fontainian magician who possesses great stage presence as well as gift for the gab. Audiences are enthralled with his exquisite skills, and they hang on to his every clever word. Yes, yeah. Something I'd say is very nice about this is it does exactly what they had been doing with Lyney's character leading into Fontaine. It did not ever give any more than the magician side of his character, really, and never spoiled, outside of the slight allusion to it in the Final Feast. Overall, prior to when it's revealed in the actual story, they never really acknowledge his connection to the Fatui or the House of the Hearth, which is great, because even if it's not like a big dramatic moment when it's revealed in the story, it is great for that to be a surprise, I feel. So I appreciate that they focused more on all the aspects of his character outside of that, or at least what he shows to people, which is very in line with his whole deal with magic and, like, the performance and what you show people and what is real and what's not. Beyond that, this demo is largely, in my opinion, just pure spectacle. It's great. The music's good. The visuals are great. I'd say it does a good job of showing off his abilities as well. I've already made note of what I like about the connection of Lyney and Lynette being in it. I love the little transitions between them. They're great. And then I like that it just pulls back to the thing of this being just a little performance practice. I love how even outside of rehearsing, they just keep flexing on, like, nobody by just doing these absurd tricks, pulling things out of cards. It's great. In line with that, actually, I'd like to acknowledge, that is not a magic trick, that is literal magic. It's one thing if she pulled the cup out from behind the card or something while, like, hiding the card, but we just see the cup move. Unless there is some kind of absurd magic trick I am not aware of how you do, I don't think that's physically possible to do unless you have a card that actually has a visual, like, animation to it, which I doubt they have. Other than that, I like this little end shot with the spotlight and Ferminet being mentioned. It's great. But that's pretty much all I have to say about Lyney's demo. Moving on to Lynette, gonna inevitably be a lot of the same, but I actually would say that Lynette is of the two siblings, the one that I like the more.
Some strange things again. It's really boring.
Really, I don't know why, because they're in a lot of ways relatively similar, but I don't know, something about her slightly more reserved vibe I like. I do find it funny that she is just a, like, cat girl, but that is, like, basically never touched on ever. I have not looked into the lore enough to understand how that works, like, with her being siblings with Lyney and Lyney not having the features. It might just be like a weird genetic thing. Probably is, but whatever. Either way, this is a great shot. I love this shot of the, like, reverse side with her more in silhouette. Despite this just being a 4-star trailer and that definitely being noticeable, it works very in line with Lyney's trailer as well, and does a lot of the same great things, I feel like. Uses the other siblings, has a lot of great plays off of her sort of style. It's cool. I don't really have much more to say that I didn't say in Lyney's demo, but I'll just touch on a few things. In line with what I was talking about earlier, about the pulling the cup out of the card, more realistically, I'd imagine the trick would be like her idol animation here, where she hides the card. We don't see it all there, but she hides the card, and then from where it was is the cup, which makes a lot more sense. I don't know why, but I just find it really funny that they made her just do actual magic in Lyney's demo. Anyways, though, elegance in the shadows. A magic assistant of few words, her emotions are as inscrutable as any cat's. Yeah, it is a little briefer of a description, which I feel like most of the 4 stars have a slightly briefer description, but it also is fitting for her, given that she is the quieter one of the 2, or 3, counting Ferminet, but Ferminet's pretty quiet as well. It works, and Elegance in Shadows is a very fitting subtitle, I'd say. Other than that, yeah, I don't really have much more to say other than it looks good, and I like the visuals and the music. It's nice. Moving on, though, to the final sibling, because we got just all 3 of them in a row. Ferminet.
As you know,
another 4-star.
Diving is one of the few things I'm any good
at. I'm a big fan of Ferminet. I haven't really used him much, but I like his character quite a bit, and how he is still incredibly tight-knit with the other 2 siblings, but is sort of the... not outsider isn't the right word, but is sort of the unique third one, where the other 2 are, you know, biological siblings and are very much tied at the hip at most times, which I like as just a little diversity thing. I love his little diver helmet. It's very goofy, but I like it. And I found the music for this demo relatively interesting. Something I've noticed with a lot of the Fontaine demos, which I guess is fitting given that they're one of the more technologically advanced nations, is how much more, like, modern and electric and stuff, like, stylings of the music it sometimes gets. There isn't a ton more to say. I love Pear. Yearning for the unseen depths. A reserved young man who is well-versed in diving. Beneath his distant, icy demeanor lies a pure heart, bereft of all flaws. I like that as a description of him. He's very reserved, in many ways more so than Lynette, but also is very determined to, as he says here, protect the family. And a lot of those lines, actually, right there, are really interesting, especially with his connections to the House of the Hearth, his awareness of Crucibina, even if it's only slightly. It's actually very interesting, and I just want to get a look at this. Okay, so that's Lynette. Yeah, and Quinny and Lynette, yeah. Sort of just a quick reference to their connections. I do find it interesting that of the three siblings demos, he stars, like, as a cameo in both of the others, but outside of that very quick shot in the middle there, the other two siblings don't appear in his demo, which is just sort of interesting to me. I don't really think there's much more to say. There's a lot of overlap between their three demos in a lot of their style and stuff. So, moving on to Neuvillette. Neuvillette is easily one of my favorite characters from Fontaine, and probably one of my favorite characters just in general in Genshin. Before the end of the Archon story, I already really liked him, like, in the first few parts of the quest line. And at the time, I probably would have said he was my favorite Fontaine character, but then everything with Furina happened, we got Arlecchino. There's just so many good characters in Fontaine. But to focus on Neuvillette here, I love the style of his trailer. It opens just so dramatically, focuses on the court immediately, focuses on the fact that he's a judge, the judge, really, and there's just a lot of focus on all of the trials that he's been involved in, all of the lying and arguing and just pure emotion that has appeared in the court over the years. And pretty much from here on, I would consider this almost a perfect demo. Like, I love the freezing of the water and then it rising back up. It's incredibly good as just an imagery thing in general, but I'll also get back to that later. I love everyone just sinking in the water with the acknowledgement of original sin. There's just so much imagery here, tying into everything with Fontaine and the storyline. And then we just here get back into the big drama, like, high energy, but also still incredibly classy, fitting for him. And then this shot is just amazing. It's just so good. I'm at a loss for words to some degree. I love it. I love it. I love his fucking hydro pump. And then we return to the court after the trial ends, with Furina complaining about the trial not being dramatic enough. And
Lady Furina.
Then he just sort of acknowledges her before focusing on the looming threat in the future. And yeah, it's so good. It's so good. And just to go through it again, because I have a few things to talk about, I love how hard this starts. I find it interesting that they do this sort of like choppy, slow frame rate of sorts there. Now we're to his description. Ordainer of an inexorable judgment. The Chief Justice of Fontaine, known as the Iudex, is renowned for his unassailable impartiality. Yep, he's the judge. It, interestingly enough, focuses on the judge part, and not the fact that he is the Hydra Sovereign, which is, once again, a good thing, I'd say, because that is something we don't learn until later. And as is with the Archons and stuff, I like when the demos don't just spoil elements that are revealed about the characters later, but rather just allude to them. That description doesn't really allude to too much, but it does describe him in every way that he exists other than being the Sovereign, I'd say, which is good. Here, I'd just like to acknowledge the shots of the Mécanique Denise Cardinal, which is just very, very fitting to be a shot, because first off, just visually, the imagery of the scales, very fitting for a judge and the court, but also, of course, lore-wise, there's all kinds of stuff there. And then continuing on, we just get some shots of him fighting. We get another bit of the court stuff. And to just mention it here again and talk about it a bit more, he freezes the water and then proceeds to raise it back up into the sky. As I mentioned, it's a great visual, but it also sort of is in reference to one of his idle animations where he does something similar. But also it, after finishing the storyline, very much always makes me think of his act in the end of the story of pardoning Fontaine's sins, as he does that in a very similar way, which is just great. Even if it's not intentionally referencing to that, it works great for that. Everyone drowning here definitely is in line with the prophecy, given that it's mentioned in line with the original sin, and it's just a great visual nonetheless. Yeah, there's just a lot of great imagery. I love this imagery. It sort of makes me think of the part of the fight with the primordial whale, where it's the weird abyss warrior with the black hole behind it, but that probably isn't like exactly what this is referencing. It just sort of makes me think of that. And then returns here. I like that this shot is Furina talking, but we never get close to her. We're always closer to Neuvillette's perspective, where she is distant and to many degrees sort of unknown, but still nonetheless above and being dramatic about things. The final shot I'll call out is this one, because when this trailer came out, this was just really ominous and cool, but then also, once we actually know the stuff with Primordial Whale, it's also more cool because this is literally just the cracks forming as the whale tries to break into the world, basically, which is just really cool. I could gush about Neuvillette for a while, but for the sake of brevity, I will continue on to Wriothesley. Wriothesley's demo is interesting to me. There's a lot of stylistic elements like this sort of comic paneling stuff that I think is really cool, and overall I just like his character quite a bit and the vibe of the demo, but there's like a couple elements that are a bit weird to me. Don't think I'm up to it. But overall it's pretty good. I like it. I like how different the music is and stuff from pretty much every other demo. The main thing I find weird about it is basically all the title cards for the people he's fighting, because I feel like that's a little bit unnecessary and a lot of them are just sort of generic, sort of lame names, but it's fine. It's no real big deal. It's just a bit funny to me. But I'd say this demo does a great job of showing off his kit, his kit and stuff. Better than actually a lot of demos, I'd say. And then, though he's willing to beat the shit out of people, this also is a great little series of shots here of showing that he also can be very cordial and, at the very least, respectful of his opponents and stuff, which is very in line with his character, I'd say. And yeah, no, there's just a lot of good style choices in here, and it shows off his character pretty well, I'd say. And yeah, we get this fun build-up here now. I love that he uses fucking mech gauntlets. It's great. I love the fact that Catalyst has sort of also become the unarmed option for characters, which I think is super cool, that they're just doing more with all of the weapon types, which I love. And yeah, I unfortunately didn't manage to get Wriothesley on his banner just because he was between all these other characters I really wanted. But getting back to the demo, I like the cameo here at the end with Xianyun, or however you say her name. And it's just a sort of nice, more lower energy end to things.
That's why I asked for a timely report.
Yeah, no, it's just good. I love the little shark sticker. It's fun. I don't have too much more to say about it. I feel like in many ways this demo is more style than substance. I like the little initial background cameo of Xianyun. It's fun. The demo is really good, but I feel like in many ways it doesn't actually show his position in the world much at all. Pretty much the only reference to the fact that he is a duke and that he runs the fortress of Meripede is in his little description here, with the very brief description of Duke of the Fortress of Meripede, Lord Incognito of the Murky Depths, which does describe him, but I'm just sort of shocked at the fact that the demo doesn't really acknowledge in any way, at least in a way that people who don't already know his character could see. But either way, it's not that big a deal because personality-wise, I'd say it does a good job of showing it off. Overall, I'd say that his teaser probably does a much better job of showing his character than this, but I mean, hey, the teasers and demos exist to show different aspects of characters, and when in conjunction with each other, they work well, I'd say. But generally speaking, I feel like the demos are what people not familiar with Genshin are going to be seeing first. So, I don't know. Regardless, I still very much enjoy this demo and think it's great. There's a lot of great shots. I love the comic panel aesthetic, as I mentioned. They do a great job of showing his kit, I'd say, while keeping it very stylistic. Beyond that, I don't really have too much more to say. So, I shall move on to Charlette. Charlette is interesting. She is like, of the characters that existed and we were introduced to prior to the story, or like during the story,
That's my journalistic motto.
she easily is like the most in the background, which I find sort of interesting. Like, she has about as much screen time in Fontaine as Mona does, which I find funny. But regardless, she's fun, and I actually really like the style of her demo. I love how it is all like this newspapery style. It's really fun, and I love her auto attacks. It's very in line with what I was saying about Wriothesley, about them being much more creative with the weapons. There's a lot of great visuals here as well, like we had the shot we just had there with all of the like camera lenses. I will say that I find a good few of her sort of fight one-liners like that a little cringy, but it's fine. And I actually like this little end bit. I very much with how they were in Sumeru. I feel like they've done a good job with ending lines for a lot of the characters. But just go through it real quick one more time. I love this whole visual showing her going to all kinds of places and interviewing people, very in line with how we first met her. Yeah, just visually, her trailer is just amazing. They really, I feel like with her, upped the stylistic quality of 4-star demos by a lot. Anyways, infatigable, I don't know how to say that word, unfortunately, reporter of the Steambird, constantly on the hunt for the truth. Yeah, where other characters I feel like are a lot more complicated and can't be really summed up in a few lines, I feel like that does get a lot of her character pretty directly. So, you know, she's a pretty straightforward character, I'd say. I'll just point out this shot right here. I really like how the camera sort of follows her emotions. I don't know, it's just a nice touch that I like. There's some great shots here. I'm not like super interested in her character itself because, you know, it's relatively straightforward, but she's nice. Once again, we have a 4-star character who has the Traveler getting involved. I'd say in this demo, it sort of strikes a spot between the good and bad uses of it. It doesn't really overstay its welcome, but I'd say it's definitely more good than not. I think it works well for, given that she's a reporter and stuff. And I like how it works as a sort of framework for her ending lines. I just love her reaction to hearing that we haven't read the paper. I don't know, it's fun. But now moving on to easily one of my favorite characters and one of my favorite demos. Furina is a character that I had an experience with that I'd say is similar to a lot of people, of I started by not being actually that interested in her when I first saw her design and heard her character, and then when I first saw her, I thought she was really goofy and silly and just very pompous in a kind of way that I enjoyed, but not enough that, like, I'd think she'd be a character that, like, is super amazing or in-depth. And then the last bit of the story kicked in, and she became easily, alongside Neuvillette, my favorite character in Fontaine, let alone the game, probably. Her story was so finely crafted, I'd say. Like, there was a little bit of the slip-up with her character story, but I'd say overall it was near perfect. Easily some of the best storytelling in the game. But to focus in on the trailer, I love this trailer. Before we even got the end of her storyline, it was her demo that really convinced me that I should pull for her, where before I was not really interested in doing that. Because there's just so much style, there's so much just great variety in here. It does an amazing job of showing her character, at least how she presents herself. And I think that's perfect that they did it that way, given that her demo was released before anyone had the chance to play the story. And yeah, no, it's really interesting. I'll talk more about the intricacies of her character and how they present her on a second go through, but yeah, no, there's just so much. But we're now coming up onto my favorite series of shots. I love this sequence of just all these wacky, sort of out of place, out of order shots. It's really fun. Some of them clearly being in reference to points in the story, others just being nonsensical moments. It's fun. And then the lyrics come in. And the rest of this trailer is just perfect. When this first came out, was obsessed with this. It is just amazing. I love how chaotic it is. I love that it's all just a performance. It's just so good. It's so amazing. And now to go through again, as there's a lot I want to touch on here. So, I love how we open. I love that it's basically presenting Furina as the Archon, as the national icon of Fontaine. It's just great build-up, so in line with her. And then there she is, drinking tea and eating sweets. She's super dramatic. I'd like to note she has her black shorts on here, and I believe she didn't have her vision there. And then she just sort of preps herself. It's great. Yeah, no, she doesn't have her vision here. And then we get into her description. I love the opening bit of style here. Very classic, like, animation movie stuff. I love that she almost has two subtitles. Like, you can't fit all of her pompous titles into one thing. It sort of has to be split into two. One that is what she presents herself as, and one that is what she actually is. Where she presents herself as Regina of all waters, kindreds, peoples, and laws, but then she actually is the endless solo of solitude. Which, I love that they give both there. Because the endless solo of solitude is just a very fun little reference to everything hidden about her. And then to get her actual description, the absolute focus of the stage of judgment, until the final applause sounds. I love the sort of double meaning there, in a way. The phrasing of the absolute focus of the stage of judgment is amazing, because on one front, she's an actor, she's a performer, she's just the dramatic Archon who embodies that which represents Fontaine, which is the stage of judgment, justice. But then, on the other side of things, the stage of judgment is also where the death of Focilla and the Hydra Archon, and Furina leading up to that final applause, where that finally happens, is the absolute focus, because she is the divining factor on whether or not that performance can come to an end. And I just love it. It's amazing. And just to actually mention here, to continue keeping track of this, black shorts with a vision now in her splash art, which is interesting. Then we have this really fun sort of silent movie aesthetic. She stops Clorinde from doing anything, saying, "My dear vassal, this is not a foe you can lightly handle. Fret not, for it is I who shall dispose of such a foul being." And then she moves in dramatically, starts attacking, and then it's revealed she's, fighting the seal. It also just works great to show off her attack animations. We get this fun sort of goofy shot of Clorinde just being like, what is going on? What is happening? And then we get a good show off of her skill as well as they beat up a crab. It's real fun. I love the music. And then another sort of goofy shot, and then moving on. So now here she has her vision, but still black shorts. I love this sequence. She's dancing with Gentleman Usher, names off all of them. I love playing rock, paper, scissors with something that can reasonably only do scissors. It's great. I love this sequence of shots as well. Her pretending to be the Archons is so funny to me. I love it. Just to go through it. I love the, interpretations from her of the Archons. We open with it being Nahida swinging on a sling playfully. It's fun. Then we go to Venti playing the lyre. It's great. And then we go to the Raiden Shogun, who is just fucking in the iconic pose, not moving, as she just swings by. I love that for Morax, I'll say Morax rather than Zhongli, because it's the Geo Archon she's emulating, not Zhongli, is literally just throwing money because of the fact that he makes the money, which I find a very funny contrast with the fact that Zhongli notoriously, never brings money with him anywhere. Which is just fun. But yeah, no, and it's just great visual storytelling that the way you can tell is, though the mannerisms are completely fitting, it also is color-coded, which is just very fun. And I love that also the crowd that is shown whenever she's swinging by is representative of the people of whatever Archon she's representing, which is just another fun thing to tie it all in. And then we have just sort of a mix here. And then we have this as a transition to a completely different vibe. She's in the limelight. And then, yeah, so actually, going back real quick, because I forgot to, during this bit, she's in the black shorts, and she does not have her vision, which is interesting. And then during this bit, she has the black shorts. It's going to be pretty hard to see if she has... I don't think she has her vision here, which makes sense. With this transition in vibe, that she transitions into the white shorts, which is very interesting. And here she has her vision, she's on the camera, shows the other side of her skill, she poses more, and now here she has the white shorts but no vision once again. I like the little cameo from Charlette. Every shot here is goofy, and I love it. I love Child running from the way too dramatic Melusines chasing after him. I love Navia just taking Neuvillette away and how she just sort of loves to see it. And then just these couple shots are just sort of fun. I like how it now just sort of rolls back through all of them, shows her ults with the music coming in, everyone moving in, and then just utter chaos happening behind, and she's just living her life to the fullest in the middle of it. And to just get the shot here to see, I don't think she has her vision. I'm gonna be able to see here better in a moment. Yeah, I don't think she has her vision here. Interesting. And then at the end here, she also doesn't, but is still in the white shorts with all of them. There's a few other shots I want to call out, but before I do, there isn't a ton of reasoning for why I was calling out all of those. I just find it interesting to see what they picked to show and win. Because there's sort of a very interesting contextual in-universe implication if she does or doesn't have her vision, from just when in her life that implies it to be. I very well might be looking into it a bit too much there, because I think for the most part when it shows her vision, it's because it's showing gameplay, and when it doesn't show her vision, it's in custom animation. But regardless, it is interesting to think about that in the time that she doesn't have her vision, all of this performance stuff can sort of be interpreted in a couple ways, being either that she's dying inside and she's just putting up an act still, or that these are sort of her moments of respite within her constantly dying inside. It's just sort of interesting to think about that. Admittedly, I'm in all likelihood thinking way too hard about it, given the fact that I don't think she reasonably could actually summon all of her little summons like Mademoiselle Craboletta if she didn't have her vision, but I mean, I don't know, that's just like a logistical thing that I'm not too keen on the knowledge of. Other than that, just to call in a few other shots, in the chaos of this end bit, once the music comes in, everyone moves in, and then we have, you know, just some normal actual fighting happening. You know, it's in this whole sequence. Just to go through it way too unnecessarily, we just see everything going flying, the camera gets knocked over, there's a stool that goes flying, Wriothesley's just fucking boxing a guy. Very iconically, Navia and Clorinda are just arguing. And then in the corner here, we have the twins just beating a guy while he's down. Over here, we have Child just going way too in on this guy. I think there's actually a shot right before that has him also just going way too hard. Yeah, no, we can see here, he's doing a fucking drop kick on this guy. And then, straight after, he gets up to just jump him again. I love it. Despite it just being a little performance thing, it's somehow perfectly in character for Child. Of like, if he was in this performance and was told, all right, we're having a fight scene, you're gonna be in the background beating this guy up, he would go as hard as possible. I love it. And then, in the sort of opposite direction, we have Neuvillette in the background here, who is just hitting this guy in the crotch. Oh my god, it's so good. And then everyone just returns to this finishing shot. It's so good. I love it. I could continue gushing forever about this demo, let alone Furina, but for the sake of moving on, I will go on to Navia. Navia, I'd say...
Boss, we have a lead on that no-good thief.
I would say that she fills a spot like Alhaitham in the sense that I didn't expect to care about her at all, but then I ended up loving her character. But that's sort of something I'd say about a lot of the characters of Fontaine, because Fontaine just was amazing. But anyways, this demo is incredibly good style, like so many of them have been. But I love how she's, like, already ahead of him with an apple. It's great. She just keeps styling on this guy. She is way too acrobatic for her own good. I love the music here. I love how much she just is having fun with it. Jumps down here, cuts him off. I love the sort of story through line here. I love that her weapon is an axe. She's sort of the first character, I feel like, whose iconic weapon was a bit more unique, which I think is great. I love that she has an umbrella gun. Her style's amazing. I love the sunglasses, it's great. I wish I was able to get her, but I failed on pulling her. I failed the 50-50. But, you know. And then, this is just like a nice little chase sequence continuing. Fun little Lynette cameo.
Thank you.
And then, it's a little confusing how they go straight from a airship to a, like, boat, but I think it works for the vibe. I love that she just has the umbrella out and her subordinates are so worried. And then she lands, there's sort of this dramatic pause, and then straight into her ult. And, yeah, there's just some great shots in here. I wouldn't say it's as good as Furina's, because I'd say Furina's is probably my favorite demo just in general. But this is a great one, it's up there. And I love this sort of shot from the perspective of the guy they just beat up.
We might need to get him to a
Yeah.
doctor first.
Now, going through it again, I love her being basically just a mafia boss.
Unfortunately,
It's
he's got a
fun,
good
it's
nose.
aesthetically
He's
fitting.
unpredictable
I find it
far.
so funny how it's like, oh yeah, no, this guy's super hard to catch. He's really fast and unpredictable. And then he just walks by. It's very comical and almost definitely intentional. But I just love it, and there's just this fun moment here of just all of them pause, and, you know, just this demo is just brimming with style, like so many of the Fontaine demos are. I love this shot, it's amazing. And now to read her description. Helm of the Radiant Rose, the current president of Spina di Rosula, who is lovely, dutiful, and a great boss. Ignore the fact that she's Mafia, basically. She's good Mafia. But yeah, it's great. It's perfectly in line with her character. Something I find very interesting, which is in line with when the demo was releasing, but I find very interesting, is in many ways it is clear that this demo is at a point after the story, at least in my opinion, because it very much more is in line with how she's, you know, more carefree and enjoying life than she was during the story, with all of the unresolved familial issues and all of that. Of course, if it's after the story, she isn't just everything is happy and fine and good. There's a lot of things that are bad that still happen to her that never can truly be resolved, but just even in the way she talks and acts, both in the demo and just as a character, is very clearly she's doing better after the story than before it, or at least that's my interpretation, which I think is great. Other than that, it's just a good demo. I think it's great. I'd basically just be calling out shots that I like without really much more than that if I kept going, so I'll just move on to Chevreuse. Chevreuse is, I'd say, easily the least interesting Fontaine character to me. It's a case of partially the fact that she just wasn't involved in the story at all, but also just for whatever reason her character just doesn't interest me. Maybe it's because she's a cop. I don't know. But I mean, she has plenty of fun things, though. And I like that she is, like, a more full-on, like, gun character in a lot of ways. Her music is interesting. It's very fitting for her, I'd say. I don't really know what the, like, thing on her neck is. It looks like, headphones to me, but I don't know. Either way. Visually, her, like, abilities and kit look nice, and demo-wise, the visuals are all great. I wouldn't say they're stylistically as strong as Charlotte's, but there's a lot of good shots regardless. A lot of, like, dramatic, sort of more simplified color shots, I'd say, which is neat. But just gonna real quick go through it.
Food like that provides me with ample energy during the workday. Plus,
I feel like, to a degree, her character is sort of scattered between a lot of sort of disparate personality traits, at least in my opinion. She has the fact that she's a captain, and then she likes deep-fried food, and she likes detective novels and stuff, which none of those are, like, strictly exclusive to each other, but I don't know. To read that, Executor of Justice, Righteous Enforcer of the Law, the Captain of the Special Security and Surveillance Patrol, who wears justice as an ever-present seal upon her heart. Her musket shall only ever point at the guilty. I mean, that sums her up pretty well. Her other little character quirks pretty much get caught in the rest of the demo. Other than that, really the only other thing I want to call out is, like, shots like this I think are really aesthetically solid. I like the sort of crack of the glass there. It's fun. I think the demo in its own is pretty solid for a 4-star demo, but whatever reason, character doesn't really interest me too much. Moving on to Gaming, though.
Hey, boss. The name's Gaming. I'm a guard from the
Gaming is also
I'm the best wushu dancer
a bit weird to me, because he easily has some of the best just auto-attack animations of pretty much any character, just stylistically speaking. Definitely, I'd say, the best of any 4-star. But he's a 4-star DPS, so I basically have never used him, because, yeah. Either way, though, I love his style and his music in this demo and the visuals and just everything stylistic about him I love. I'm not the greatest fan of his voice, but it doesn't irk me in the same way that, like, Mika's voice does.
I feel like watching Manzai has helped me get a better handle on how Swan-D look in action. As soon as I put my wushu head on, I'm right
as another character who doesn't really have a role in the story much, I never really gotten too attached to him, but visually he is great, as I've said. Yeah, and once again, the Traveler appears in the demo.
They do evening service and it's invite only.
But yeah, I'd say the demo,
Hey, boss.
as does pretty much every demo at this point, does a good job of showing off his character, but I don't really have too much to say about him, so I'll just get his description and then go from there. His music does go very hard. I love it. Anyways, Leonine Vanguard. Guard of the Sword and Strongbox Secure Transport Agency, and the head of the mighty mystical beasts Wusho Troop. I mean, that's pretty much who he is. Other than that, pretty much just like a cool dude. Not much more to say about it than that, I feel like. I've never really looked into his character enough to know anything more than that. For me, more so than anything, the demo is more visual and auditory than like actual substance, but, you know, anyways.
For
Xianyun.
a modern heroine, we need a modern weapon.
Quite.
The
Was
likes of swords,
intending to
staffs,
pull for
spears,
Xianyun,
bows. Are you
but
big enough?
then
We
I
need something
realized that
more original.
if I wanted to, as a free-to-play character, get
Gusto?
both Arlecchino and her weapon, it would need to start saving from pretty much here, so I did not pull for her, which I sort of regret in some ways, but also don't, because I was able to pull Arlecchino very solidly. But to focus on Xianyun currently, I think it's very cool that we've gotten one of the Adeptus that typically is in a different form, sort of completing the family with Shenhe and Ganyu, but, you know, I'll touch on it again later, but the quality of this demo is very interesting to me, because, in my opinion, it's like a mix of these, like, incredibly good, just really solidly done stylized shots of amazing animation,
We can't use any of this in the script.
with
She's utterly
also
ridiculous.
just
An adventuress?
sort of
Load of
straightforward and not too crazy other bits. It's weird. It sort of is a mixed bag for me, but it definitely has grown on me since my first viewing. I find it interesting how much of an emphasis they put on the fact that she can make people jump high. But, you know, it works. And her design's great. The music's good, but it doesn't really jump out at me like some of the other ones do. And
Have I convinced you
yeah,
yet?
I like the other lady being stuck in the tree. It's fun.
From here, please.
But yeah, I don't have a ton to say about the demo itself. I'll just call out some stuff. I love this opening bit. It's like sort of absurd how hard this animation goes. It just flows so well. I don't really find like what is being talked about throughout the trailer or the little mini storyline all that interesting, but just visually it's great. Now to get this. She has two descriptions. Interesting. One of the mighty and illuminated Adepti of Xianyun, known as Cloud Retainer. Expert in all kinds of mechanical contraptions, her heart now turns towards the affairs of the mortal world, through which she walks under the name Xianyun. I actually like that they sort of split it between the two. It's effectively one description, but they just sort of split it to two sides. I like the acknowledgement of, yeah, this is Cloud Retainer, but this is the name she's going under, and she's actually taking interest in the mortal world. It does a good job of not only describing her core character, but also acknowledging why she's only now becoming, like, relevant enough to be a character. I feel like here, though they do a good job of showing her kit, coming from how solid the initial animation stuff was, it doesn't really interest me compared to how amazing this, like, shit looks. It's amazing. Other than that, though, I mentioned it, but I find this little bit here a little odd. I feel like it sort of breaks the pacing of the demo a little, but I recognize that can't just be all the, like, amazing stylistic shots constantly. If they want to, like, have a proper demo to show off her kit. It definitely is still a really good trailer, but just of Fontaine's 5-star demos, I'd say it's probably one of the worst in my opinion. Not in the sense of, like, it overall is bad, but just that as a whole, it doesn't strike me as hard as something like Navia's or Wriothesley's or Neuvillette's or anything like that. But hey, that's just me. I know a lot of people like this demo, and it has some really amazing parts. But moving on to Chiori. Chiori is another character who just sort of started existing after the story, so I haven't been nearly as exposed to her character enough to fall in love with her, really. I like her vibe. I also really love how the demo portrays her, but, you know, she's a good character, just not the kind of character that I'm, like, itching to pull for or anything. But I love the sort of dual blade style she goes for. I love the visuals of the demo. I don't know what about it specifically does this, but I like how her music sounds, because it very much sort of gives me the design, like the vibe of a person who is like a clothing designer. I don't know why, but it fits really well to me. But, you know, and I like that it has sort of some Inazuman styling to it in the music, given that she is from originally Inazuma. I do actually very much enjoy the fact that she is from Inazuma, but that she is in Fontaine. It's an interesting little, like, character combination that I like. Because there really isn't, like, a ton of characters that have that kind of overlap. Like, Toma's, like, the main other one, I'd say. But, yeah, no, just overall, the trailer visually is great. There's a few things I'll want to call out once we're on a second go-through. But it does a great job of showing her character, I'd say. I love that shot with just all the fabrics.
Now, last but
And
not least,
I like this little
My work brings in the
banter
customers,
between them.
Not my smile.
It's
But you
very
got such a
expressive
pretty
of her
smile.
character. And then there's just this little bit at the end, which is fun. I like how they're just cleaning up, and she realizes that a bit of Navia's dress fell off, and she's just like, oh, god damn it. Anyways, going through again, I like that it opens with basically, like, a journalistic editorial, like, what do you think of her brand? You know, and it has people giving conflicting opinions of her, like, a lot positive, with some people who don't like it as much, and then she comes in acknowledging her sort of stylistic stuff. I find the Thundering Seamstress an interesting subtitle for her, because she isn't Electro, so Thundering is an interesting choice of words, but given that she's from Inazuma, it's fitting, and I think personality-wise it's fitting. Then description-wise, she has a very brief description, unless it is on here. No. The owner of Chiori Boutique, a tailor renowned throughout Fontaine. I really like her design. I mentioned I love that she does dual-wielding stuff. I like the stylistic choices of, like, those panels and stuff. Shows up here again. I love how often they'll do these shots with, like, fabrics in the background, her doing, like, poses, showing off her summon thing. Other than that, yeah, just shows her off a lot. Shows sort of a showing of her fashion. I like the cameo of Carrara. That is something I feel like this demo does that is very fun. The sort of acknowledgement that all of these characters had their outfits designed by her. It's a way to sort of tie her into the world in a very solid and distinct way, while still allowing her to be a character who only became relevant after the story. I like it. It's cool. It's very fitting in a lot of ways. I think I've called out pretty much all of the stylistic things I like. I like that rather than calling in, like, the Traveler or something, which they tend to do for, like, 4-star demos, they have Navia come in. That's just something I like. Other than that, I think I've mentioned everything I want to say about her. So now, we move on to the finale for this video. Arlecchino. Arlecchino is, I'd say, my most anticipated character of Fontaine. Since she appeared in Final Feast, I mean, even actually, the original, like, reveal of all of the different Harbingers, she's been one of the ones I wanted the most. And her trailer just is so perfect for her in so many ways. I love how sort of somber it starts, and then we get this high tension moment here.
Until it sets all ablaze.
It's so ominous, and I love it. And then snaps, and the energy picks up, but it's still just so eerie as she starts fighting. And the music is a really interesting choice. It's really fitting, but not at all really what I expected. And then we have this just sort of reprise almost, but it's still incredibly eerie as the like child choir comes in, which is just so fitting with all the like kids going past her. She just continues to walk, and then she turns to see the choir, clear skies, but there's a darkness behind everything, and we get her ult, and the music hits again. So many great visuals. And then it just picks up to full energy, and but we still get those moments of just like it goes down again for a moment. I am just gushing at this point, but
I hear that the children love to play by
I love this ending bit. It's
So let us continue to use
it's
the main
great. I
house.
love the cameo of the House of the Hearth children.
Its flame is no longer needed. For you have the strength to defend yourselves.
And I love that end line. So good. Now to go through it again. She starts in Mondstadt, and then she continues into Inazuma, and then arrives in Sumeru, and then shortly will be in Fontaine, which is really cool how she basically is traveling through the world to all places where the Fatui have been, and specifically House of the Hearth members have been, and that kind of thing. It's a really interesting decision, in my opinion, to put her on a throne that is very reminiscent to sort of the framing that they've put characters like Furina and Neuvillette on thrones during Fontaine, but with this clearly having like a little bit more of a Conrian style to it. It's great, given her connections to the Blood Moon and stuff, and then it goes to her own actual throne as everything is in just pure red darkness. There's this glitchy thing with all the children near the hearth, these ominous lines, and then we get to her description. And when I say we get to her description, I mean, she doesn't get one. She's like Wanderer, but unlike Wanderer, who doesn't have a description because he's a blank slate, Arlecchino doesn't get one because she is an enigma who has never truly revealed who she is to anyone, really. There's very few people who can even begin to consider saying that they understand her. And, yeah, it's great. It's crazy. I love the fact that she has sort of like that black hole thing behind her in a lot of her imagery. All of the variations in like energy and intensity of the music is amazing. I love that the enemies she's fighting have a variety. They start with like a tangible person, go into a more intangible, sort of more spirit enemy, and then later will be something else. But to just, while we're here, acknowledge this. I like that all of the children that are like faded out and distorted are walking in one direction while she's walking another, sort of implying, given her backstory, that like they're all of the children who have died from the House of the Hearth, where then she quiets the choir just to bring in the more ominous one. There's the eye there. I love that she uses a scythe. It's amazing. And then to bring reference to it here, she now is fighting Conrian, basically. Which, she's not just fighting them, but she's in full control. They're in her grasp. Throughout this entire trailer, I'd say more so than any character, it gives the feeling that she is in, like, just complete control. Nothing escapes her grasp. And we see that a bit in her story. Just how there's never a point where she isn't in control. And we never know what she knows or what she truly is capable of. And I just love that. And then here, I said how I like this, but I love tying back to the beginning lines of, like, the stories of how the children would live sort of in fear and huddle around the warmth of the fire to feel some level of safety as they waited for the adults to return. And now she acknowledges, yeah, we can continue using the name House of the Hearth as the children enjoy playing by the fire, but blame is no longer needed, as you have the strength to defend yourselves. There's sort of two things that I like to interpret with that. One is just the more obvious thing of the fact that she has made sure that her children have the strength to defend themselves, and more than that, she, for better or for worse, has made the children of the House of the Hearth powerful and dangerous people. I love how complex and morally dubious in a lot of ways her character is, while still, in many ways, being so much better than a lot of the people who preceded her and amongst the Harbingers are around her. Just so interesting. I love it. But to call out the other thing I'd like to say about it, this is something more in the sort of theory realm that could still be the case, but may not be now given that we've gotten her story and stuff. With how they frame this shot of the light leaving her as she sort of looks down, and like something about the way her eyes move here and the way she says the line gives me, and I know a lot of other people, sort of the feeling that she's basically saying that with the idea that she won't be there to protect the kids for long, and maybe that she's gonna die, or that she's going to do something that is going to get her killed, or that something will take her out of the picture. And I feel like, though that didn't happen in her story quest, depending on how things go moving forward in this main story, I think it's possible that she portrays the Fatui and does some grand play to save the House of the Hearth from the Fatui or something, at the cost of herself. But, I don't know. That's big theory realm, and a lot of it is just placated on how a line is said and how she looks like when she says it. But either way, Arlecchino is an amazing character. I'd say her, Furina, and Neuvillette are my top 3 characters, both demo and just character-wise, in all of Fontaine. I love it, and I'm just so excited to see where the future of Genshin is going to go. Between upcoming characters like Clorinde, who I am really excited for, I'm really anticipating pulling for her, as well as the quickly approaching stuff about Natlin that will inevitably be getting in the near future. I'm just really excited. The future of Genshin is bright, in my opinion. And though they definitely could screw it up, I think Hoyoverse has enough of a track record with this that, though they'll always have plenty of little issues and quirks that are weird and not great or whatever, on the grand scale of things, I think they're going to do. And I look forward to, in the future, seeing every new reveal and every new demo with all of you guys. And as soon as any new demos or trailers come out, I intend to record those as videos and get those out to you guys. So look forward to that. And with that, I'll call it here as we've finished all of the demos. I hope you have a good day. Subscribe, like the video if you want. I'd really appreciate it. Let me know what you'd want me to do next, between reacting to the Genshin character teasers, the version trailers, potentially seeing me do some actual gameplay and go through some of the story quests that I have never gone back and finished. There's a lot of those. Maybe some of the newer ones as well as they come out. Or perhaps you guys would like me to branch out to the other Hoyoverse games. I can start reacting to the character demos and such for the Star Rail characters as well, and I intend to do that at some point, but if any of you have an opinion on when that is, sooner or later, I'd love to know. And I also intend to get into their other games, like Zenless Zone Zero when it comes out, or Honkai Impact 3rd, which I've been on and off playing for a long time. This is all just to say that this is just the beginning for this channel, and I hope that some of you will stick around to see it continue. So thank you and goodbye.